I'm Casey Dinges, Executive Advisor for the American Society of Civil Engineers. Thanks for joining me today as we discuss how diverse teams drive business innovation. Because we think this topic is so important, we're going to cover it over two interchanges. My guest for part one of this discussion is Miguel Alemañy, founder of Innomatrix. He is also chair of the board for the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. Welcome, Miguel.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon.
Miguel, why is it important for businesses to create diverse teams in their organizations?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, people don't really think about these things, but we tend to have a group of friends, a group of people we hang out with, and over time, we tend to all think the same. The same is true at work. When you get people that all come from the same background, from the same ethnicity, from the same gender, over time, they trend to have same thinking. McKinsey has done a study, very interesting study, and has looked at companies' performance as they relate to diversity on their boards. And they found out that boards with significant diversity, and this is gender, ethnicity, race, and other kinds of diversities, companies with significant diversity on the boards outperform companies with homogeneous board by 35%. That's a huge amount of money. There's a huge size difference. The reason comes because when you have people that are very different, they tend to think different. And if you're an engineer, if you're into technology, you know that invention happens when you get a need with an impossible solution together, and that brings you something that didn't exist before, an invention. Same thing happens in teams. When teams are heterogeneous and they start talking about a problem, different points of view come in, different solutions, different ways of looking at the problem, and out of there comes a solution that tends to be better than a solution created by a homogeneous team. So it's a very interesting dynamic.
That's interesting, and you may have touched upon it already, but how does having employees of various backgrounds drive innovation for projects and products?
Well, our backgrounds determine who we are and what we are. If you grew up in the middle of the country, and if you grew up in the East Coast, if you grew up in the West Coast, you're going to have a slightly different perspective of things. If you're Republican, if you're Democrat, if you're male, female, if you're a Southerner, if you're a Northerner, if you're German or you're Chinese, we're all going to have different perspectives. So when problems show up, we will tend to look at the problem from a different standpoint. And I'll give you an interesting example. Scent, smell, which is very critical for our development, our well-being in life, has two components: societally induced scent and genetically induced scent. If you smell rotten meat in here, it will smell bad. If you're in China and smell rotten meat, it's going to smell bad. A Chinese smells rotten meat, the Chinese will know not to eat it, because the brain is saying, danger, there's something wrong with this. However, when you're here in the States and you smell a Douglas fir tree, boom, you go back to being 5 years old in front of the tree waiting for Santa to arrive. And it's all going to be about the most wonderful time of the year. When a Chinese smells a Douglas fir tree in Beijing, it goes back to the forest, doesn't go back to Christmas. So that Chinese person will have such a different perspective on that tree than you will have, that when you're both talking together about a problem, he or she will think things that will never occur to you because you are trapped in Christmas, and vice versa. He or she will have all these ideas of how to solve the problem, and you'll have different ideas because you remember when you were a kid at Christmas, you used to do this to the tree or used to do that to the tree. So that difference in perspective is where innovation happens. It's very critical. Never try to innovate with a homogeneous team. you're just not going to get the richness that you get otherwise.
Very interesting. So what type of research has been done to examine and highlight the connection between business success and diverse talent?
There's a couple of Harvard Business Reviews, and I recommend that you Google it. They're very interesting. The one that I like the most is the McKinsey study. McKinsey just look at performance of companies by their diversity. It's a very simple way of looking at it. If you look at a specific market, specific industry, get 10 companies and look at the ones that have significant diversity versus the ones who don't have. And diversity, by the way, is not having a token diversity. So if your board is 95% male and you have one woman, that's really not diversity. Diversity is your board is a third something else. Your board is half something else. And you have male and female, and you have black, white, Asians, you have Hispanics, Anglos, you have whatever you have. You have foreigners. I worked for 40 years at Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble's board is 50% composed of people that are different. In fact, the board reflects the mixture of the consumers that the company serves, because that's how you get that innovation. That's how you get that. So my advice, if you're interested in that, is look at McKinsey study, look at Harvard Business Reviews, and you're going to find 100 more. So this is something that has been studied tremendously. So it's very consistent, the findings.
Is the McKinsey study fairly recent? Do you recall the year?
It compares 14 to 17 or 14 to 19. So it's not from this year or last year. It has a couple of years, but it could have been updated. I mean, I'm going by memory. It could have been updated since. But
okay, thanks for that.
I don't know if there's I mean, there may be a recent one, but that's the easiest one to do is to Google it.
Is there a particular lack of diversity in STEM fields? And if so, why do you think?
Well, interesting you mentioned that. I am working to eliminate one particular deficiency in STEM fields, which is Hispanics. Hispanics are 18% of the population, but they're only 6% of the STEM field degrees. Mm-hmm. So my organization raises money goes to high schools, and first thing we do is we make STEM interesting. And I'm assuming my audience here is 99% STEM, probably engineers. So you guys are already excited about this, but not everybody is excited about science. I call myself a propeller head. Not everybody is a propeller head. So we go and make STEM interesting, and then we collect money to help these kids go to school. While they're in school, while they're in college, we provide them support, counseling support, and when they graduate, we help them find a job. We place in the industry 3,000 to 7,000 new engineers every year in our career fair. So I know that is a need. African Americans are also underrepresented. Women are severely underrepresented, and there's something that is amusing to me. When you look at the population is 50% male, 50% female. When you look at engineering schools, it's 80% male, 20% females. Our membership in SHEP is 65-35. So we're better than the engineering in the whole. But when you look at the University of Puerto Rico, there's a very interesting phenomenon. And the University of Puerto Rico is like 75% male, 25% female on the engineering school. But when you remove civil engineering, which I'm talking to you guys, when you remove civil engineering, the school is actually 55% female, 45% male. Civil engineering is 85% male. So I would say that in STEM, women are underrepresented. In civil engineering, they're severely underrepresented. And those are areas that are fairly easy to tackle. Again, going back to my organization, we work with the parents of kids to make sure that they go and study engineering without being unencumbered by societal norms or cultural norms. Oh, you're a woman, you won't fit in engineering. Of course you do. I mean, your gender has nothing to do with your ability to do engineering. So I would say in general that minorities in general are underrepresented, but some of them more than others. It's an area that we need to work.
So let's run with this a little bit more. So how can we build more diverse teams?
Well, I'll tell you this. I don't know to what degree you reach students in high school, but that's where you need to start. You know, if a woman became a lawyer, I'm going to go to that woman and convince her to become a civil engineer. It's not going to happen. But if you get them in high school and you get the students and the parents, and I'll give you one example. We had a session where we were talking to students in high school, and we had this woman. She was a junior in high school who told me that she wanted to be a chemical engineer. I'm a chemical engineer, by the way, so we bonded right away. But she told me she was instead going to be a nurse. Why are you going to be a nurse? So my father said I have to be a nurse. Why? Because women are not engineers. So I spent about 4 hours over two weeks talking to the parents and showing them successful female engineers, to the point that dad said that she could give it a try. He was not sure, but she could give it a try. Today she's an engineer and she works for the water reclamation department in Los Angeles. So you have to also get to the parents, because the parents and teachers, not on purpose, but somehow they push boys one way and girls the other way. And the best way to do that is to make sure the parents don't do that. The second thing is make it attractive to the target audience you want: Hispanics, women, Asians, Midwesterners, whatever you're going for. Find ways to make civil engineering attractive to them, STEM attractive to them. We're joining forces with the STEM coalition in Washington to do some of this, to create some more excitement about it.
And I trust there's a happy dad out there.
There is a happy
So,
dad out there. She is outperforming all her schoolmates in her career, because she was very good, or is very good.
so,
She's still there.
so, Miguel, as you've said, diversity, equity, and inclusion are more than just race and gender. What are some of the other perspectives that hiring managers should keep in mind when building a team?
Well, background. I mean, this is where I started. Background is the biggest diversity you can get. Where you grew up. If you grew up in LA or you grew up in New York City, your upbringing is going to make you a very different person. It's a reality. The most critical diversity you need in a team is diversity of thought. And most companies, unfortunately, not all, but most companies kind of weed out diversity of thought. You create somebody in the image of the company. And here comes this other guy, propeller head like me, and think different. The best example that I give on this one is the difference in two terms, and they're good terms: linear thinker and scatterbrain. A linear thinker is a guy who says, if A is bigger than B, B is bigger than C, A is bigger than C. Very logical. These people are absolutely necessary for any company to get anything to market. 75% of operations and manufacturing is full of linear thinkers. If you don't have linear thinkers, you never get anything done. So they're the heart of getting things done. The other side of the coin is a scatterbrain. I'm a scatterbrain. The scatterbrain says, if A is bigger than B and it is raining in Denver, then this boat is going to be 2 feet tall. You go, what? How in the world do you make that connection? Well, we do make those connections. We do make those non-obvious connections. We probably can't deliver anything to market because we're always making connections, but we are where the inventions come. The scatterbrains are the ones who create the technologies that the linear thinkers develop and take to market. So you need both of those in your team. If all you have is linear thinkers, you're all going to go execute before anything is even known. If all you have is scattered brains, you're always going to be coming up with new ideas, always going to have one more possibility. Well, before we go, one more possibility, and never get anything done. So you need to have a good mixture in your team. You have to, as a team leader, you have to balance execution or converging with diverging, execution with scattered brains, and make sure that you have the proper combination so that together you come up with a solution and you deliver it. Very critical part.
Excellent example to identify. Thanks for that. So DE&I is also not about checking boxes, right? So what are some
Right.
of the best practices for successfully leading diverse teams and fostering an inclusive work culture?
Well, first of all, there's always this controversy about D&I that it doesn't become numbers. I just look at my team and I have, 2.2% African Americans. I needed to have 3.1%. So I need a torso and a leg of a person to make 3.1. That is just a tool. That's a tool how you're gonna get it. What you need to have is you need to have an approach where you go after sufficient number of the people that you're looking for so that you bring good people. Because the other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to bring a Hispanic. That is probably not very good, but I need a Hispanic on my team, or a woman. Well, she's not very bright, but I need a woman. No, you can't do that because you will sacrifice you would be worse than if you had not done diversity. But you do have to go to sufficient candidates to make sure that you find the best. Intelligence, whether you're male, female, black, white, green, is a bell-shaped curve. It's a normal distribution. Some people are brilliant, some people are not. So you want African Americans in your team. You got a team of 10 people. You probably need to talk to 10 African Americans and choose the best. Don't talk to one, talk to 10. You have a team of 1,000. You want to get 100. You need to talk to 1,000 African Americans to find the top 10% and bring them into your team, or women, or whatever. So make sure that the numbers that you have to use don't become the objective. The numbers is the tool by which you find what you're looking for. Same thing on diversity of thought. It's not enough to breeze one. The token scattered brain like me, or the token linear thinkers. You got to go through many. The ones that are better because bell-shaped curve. Nature does everything on a normal distribution, from height to intelligence to approach to logic. Everything is normal distribution. So you gotta do sufficient interviewing to find the best of the right kind of people that you're looking for. Then you need to work with that team to make sure it is cohesive. Because the good news of having a diverse team is you got many different points of view. The bad news is you got many different points of view and you may get stuck and never do anything. So you need to work with your team and the team dynamics to make sure that team works. You need to do team building exercises. And some of you will roll your eyes. Oh my God, it's another HR exercise. But they work. They work. That's how you get to know them. And my suggestion, by the way, is have a social hour once a week where you have a team. Let me give you one example. In my last job, I spent 40 years in P&G, and the job that I had the last 8 years, I used to do breakfast every Friday morning. Very few rules. Rule number one, I will supply the breakfast. So the company supplies the breakfast, coffee, donuts, stuff like that. You don't bring your own. We'll supply it. Rule number two, you have to eat it in the breakfast room. You can come in, take it, and go back to your desk. You have to eat it in the breakfast room. And rule number three, and the most important rule, you can't talk about work. You can complain about work, but you can't work. You can't sit there and say, "Hey, we got a meeting at 2 o'clock. Can you bring me the follow?" No, you can't do that. You could say, "Oh my God, I got 20 meetings today and I hate that." You can complain. You just can't work. The first day, when I got to this division, the first 2 weeks that I did this, people sat there in silence, eating their donuts, staring at each other, doing nothing. It was very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. By the time I left, I had the best team in the company. We had, because P&G surveys the employees once a year, employee survey, and my team had the highest score for integration, working together, doing things together. So that's how you do it. You have to create cohesion in that team, and you do have to bring them together. And if you don't bring them together, the benefits you bring with a diverse team, you might lose in the dynamics.
Miguel, we have less than a minute to go. How can we identify, address, and overcome biases in the workplace?
Well, you need to put yourself in the other person's feet. And the other thing I tell you, in my experience, 90% of what we think of biases many times is just ignorance. So if you're not sure, ask. Nobody's going to be offended. You know, and I see that you have a strong accent, and you from the Northeast, as opposed to try to talk in the accent of the person to try to bond, because the person will not, maybe you're not from the Northeast, just talk like that. So just ask, be respectful and ask, and don't come in assuming you're biased. So I get people come in and say, well, you know, I'm white, so I had this white privilege. Now, right there, you started the conversation the wrong foot. Or, you know, I tell I'm Hispanic, so you know I'm gonna be emotional. Well, don't start that way. Don't start by highlighting differences that are not particularly good. It's okay for you to say, "Hey, I'm Hispanic and I'm glad to be in your team," or it's okay for you to say, I'm a white guy from Chicago. I'm glad to be in your team. You know, when can we start? What can I learn from you guys? That's okay.
That'd be me.
So,
Miguel,
but those things are important.
thank you
Sorry.
so much for joining me today for this enlightening discussion on how diverse teams drive business innovation and success.
It was a pleasure. And if anyone has any questions, you guys have my emails. I'm very happy to do a follow up or answer them on email. It's good. So diversity is a tool. It's a good thing.
For more information on ASC's Interchange series, visit asce.org/interchange. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll see you next time on ASCE's Interchange Live.